Breaking news, and welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Sexy Business Podcast. As always, I'm Lewd Neko, here to deliver all of the truth and facts about the aerogay industry. And joining me is Spooky Dangerous.
Here with the lies and deceit of the aerogay industry. I'm the evil co-anchor this time, I guess.
I'm the one that speaks only in truths, and you're the one that speaks only in lies.
Hell yeah.
And that's how you get your news delivered.
Absolutely.
And today we are going to be talking a little bit about the apparently internationally controversial game No Mercy, which, if you haven't heard about it, it is kind of like, in my opinion, a very basic 3D adult visual novel with some dark kinks that somehow made it into the international news. I think it's banned in Australia, the UK, and somewhere else. Not in America, because we believe in freedom.
Yep.
But it reminds me a lot. I don't know if you remember the game Rape Play, which was from 2006 or 8. It was like a really kind of early Japanese adult game. That one, the exact same thing happened. I think especially because it had the word in the title, it created this huge stir. I think it's also a game that's technically banned in some countries still. And it's really a pretty basic sort of you molest women on a train and things like that you see in so many games like Time Stop or any of those sleeping games, if you remember those from Newgrounds.
Yep.
But this one, for whatever reason,
related thing.
Yeah, exactly. Now neither of us have actually played the game, partially because it doesn't have a demo, and I don't want to pay $10 for a game that I know I'm not going to enjoy. Not because I think it's immoral, but because I'm just ew, I don't like the art style. But it sounds based on the perusal I've done on the itch.io page and in F95 zone of people talking about it, is it seems to be very much more dubcon via blackmail seems to be a really big one, and cheating and NTR and stuff like that. So it's not you're threatening them with a gun or a knife or whatever the news is portraying this as. But it's more of oh, I think your mom's a cheating slut, and now you're gonna get revenge by blackmailing her about it or something like that. But yeah.
It's interesting to me because we looked at it and, like you said, we weren't going to play it. And the dev, after all the controversy, posted this big thing where it's all the media pundits and creators coming out talking shit about the game, haven't even played the game. And we're well, we haven't played the game, but also we don't think it's anywhere near as bad as everyone else is talking about. The way that it looks with the 3D models and everything like that, and the dubious consent content, makes it actually just very similar to Shattered Minds, which we only looked at just a couple of weeks ago, except it has a weird superhero angle to it. And so I'm thinking, is just the title the thing? People just looked at the title and they went, oh, that's the content in it? I'm convinced it's really terrible or whatever.
Yeah, and I really do think it's the marketing or the particular image they use. So on the Steam page, or what used to be the Steam page, I mean, this is a game called No Mercy, which is already a pretty kind of edgy title compared to Shattered Minds, which kind of sounds
More
mysterious.
fantasy. Yeah.
And then it's kind of a photo of one of the women from the game, and her hair is being pulled, she's being held up, and she looks sad or distressed. And I think in one of the promotional images, she's got mascara running down her cheeks because she's been crying. And I really do think it's just because of those images. I think if they had chosen even just different images for the Steam page and maybe a less edgy title, they probably could have gotten away with it, because I think people would have just scrolled past it like they do with 99% of random adult game on Steam.
Well, I think it's funny because, like you said, the content in it we don't think is actually as severe as people are touting online. And there's so many other things that are kind of identical and similar. There's so many millions of just regular video humans doing it. Porn that's really similar in concept and severity. But Just wait until American conservatives discover that THM makes games that encourage people to become transgender, and then maybe we also will become international news and make millions of dollars. But I just, I don't know. It had to have hit something, and then people go, "Oh wow, we're gonna blow this up. This is the next biggest thing. We need to hit the video games are bad, bell every couple of years or something." And it just feels not like blown out of proportion, because it is, but it also feels like it has nothing to do with the game. Like they've just kind of picked a marching point, so to say, and they're like, well, this is the thing. This is what we're mad about now. And then if anyone in the pipeline actually played the game, they'd be like, it's actually kind of mediocre. It's not like some of the games that have been banned in Australia. And a lot of them are unwarranted because it's really not that severe. But like some of them that have actually been banned, like Manhunt, display incredibly accurate murder scenes, but it's like very gory, and it's like a more truer simulation. So like something like Call of Duty where bullets go on people and they fall down. But then having something like this where I can guarantee you, doesn't have mocap realistic animations for anything. Some guy had to rig this, and it's probably a small dev team. So just how realistic could it be? And also I always have the uncanny valley problem with any of these 3D model type games. So just how immersive could it be? And so on the face of it, none of this feels genuine, or actual concern about the real game itself.
Yeah, I'm like scrolling through some of the top adult games on Steam right now, and one that came out like around the same time is literally called Dojin Fever Night Assault, and it is a game where a girl is sleeping and you do things to her while she sleeps.
Yeah.
And like any of these other ones, like I'm sure if you dug into the actual game, like most of these contain either some form of dubious consent or like non-consent. Like it's such a common theme, not just in like erotic games, but in erotic fiction, in erotic fan fiction, in manga, in hentai, and even in just like mainstream porn. I mean, like a lot of it contains like a little bit of like BDSM, or like stepcest is like one of like the most popular categories for like mainstream porn, is like stepbrother and stepsister, stepmom and stepson. Like it's all over the place.
Yeah, and not to get started on like lolicon or shotacon with any of the like actual Eastern content, which in my opinion is way worse and is insane how prevalent it is. But for some reason, this was the thing that they chose to like die on this hill, which is crazy. And we talked about this a little bit in the pre-show, but there's literally nothing that could be contained in the game that is worse than the stories I've heard women tell me about their lived experience. Which is insane, first of all, to know that people have gone through these horrible things, but for also a conservative talking point to be about this video game that's like realistically incredibly tame compared to actual lived experience, and not actually do anything to help the real world survivors of these horrible things that do happen, but just to, I don't know, signal that, I don't know, video games are bad. Because what they're saying is video games are bad. They're not saying any of these kinds of abuse are bad. They're saying this video game is bad because it mentions this topic, which is it's just censorship. It's like never actually anything to do with the topics involved. It's just media trying to gain control over the narrative.
The other interesting thing is, so there's a really big Reddit thread on 2X chromosomes, which is like one of the worst subreddits. And it's all like the major assumption in like all of these comments is that like this was made by a bunch of horrible men. The only people who would play this are horrible men. Men are evil. Men are the only ones who ever do assault. It's always men as the perpetrators. Men are evil, and they're the only ones who could ever enjoy this. And I'm like, it's kind of the reverse though, because at least when it comes to fictional content, like rape is way more common as a theme in like stuff that's geared towards women. Like there's like the entire like dark erotica is like a whole subcategory that is based around like unhealthy power dynamics or like dubious or non-consent. It's super common in like fan fiction all over the place, or like Omegaverse. So much rape.
Yeah.
Yaoi. Like to give an example of other games that are on Steam that are much worse. Nitro, Chiral Plus, or whatever they are, whatever their Boys Love brand is. I mean, they have both Dramatical Murder and Sweet Pool on Steam. Granted, it is a patch example where you have to patch it to get like the extreme content, but like those are games that feature like some really nasty depictions of like rape, especially in Sweet Pool where it does have like gore combined with it to an extent. And I don't think that's bad. I think that both those games are awesome. But just as an example of like again, it's so weird that this is the one that people are like, oh, it's all over. Video games are evil because of this like very mediocre game that is probably making so much more money that it would have ever made normally because of this controversy. I think this is a game that totally would have gone under the radar. It would have made a quick buck, and then like the dev would have moved on. But sometimes bad press is good press because while they did end up taking the game, I think of their own volition off Steam. I don't believe it was probably going to get banned is my guess. I think Steam would have eventually caved. But I think the dev just went ahead and took it off on their own. But it's still available on itch.io, and there's like a ton of comments of people talking about playing it. And just in the past, like literal day, like I was scrolling through like hundreds of comments from the past like 24 to 48 hours. And they do have a subscribe star, even though they got their Patreon taken down, which is not surprising. Patreon has been taking down anyone. I'm surprised they made it this long without their game being taken down just for having the step cest, because I know Patreon's been getting finicky about that. But they already have 355 subscribers on their subscribe star. The minimum amount is $1, but to get the game, it's 10. So they're making a good amount of money off of this.
Yeah, and Patreon really is the house of straw when it comes to the Three Little Pigs. When any kind of, even if you just put keywords in the description for stuff, I can't type JOI in anything without Patreon being like, haha, surely you did mean to say that. Surely you meant joy, right? Because if you actually meant JOI, we'll have to ban you. I'm like, what the fuck? It's like not even if the content is not specifically that, I should still be able to say it. Say the thing. Compared to like so many other slurs and horrible words and stuff like that. So I'm not surprised that it got taken down from Patreon. But yeah, scrolling through some of the comments on itch.io, people like, can I please have a Steam key? Is really funny. And it really must have just gotten, I don't know, gigantic controversy or whatever. To actually get catapulted to something like this. And I wouldn't be surprised if over time all the comments are like, man, I wish this game was actually good, or when is there actually going to get more real content added to it, or whatever. As is what most comments on most games are, which I think would also be kind of funny and related. But maybe I should reach out and we should get like an actual interview, or maybe we should trade secrets so that I can get THM on fucking American conservative news, because maybe that's my ticket to millions of dollars.
Video games are gonna trans your children.
Yeah, that's it. I'm intentionally trying to help trans women achieve the enlightenment that they so seek.
But yeah, no, it is interesting because I did kind of try to scroll through some of the F95 zone comments from around the time that this controversy started, and it was kind of like a mixed bag. Some people really liked it, said the animations were good. Some people were like the plot was kind of lame, or like apparently the ending and some of the like storylines were just like choppy and weirdly paced. So again, like I think this is probably, if I had to guess just looking at it, I think this is like a solidly mid game. This looks fine. It doesn't look particularly special, but it doesn't look particularly bad. I think it is complete. So I'm guessing they're going to move on to another project after this. But
surely with an even more salacious title.
Yeah, just like put all the scary words in there.
Yeah. New
I
game
hate
coming
women.
soon is Women Murder Death Kill or whatever. Yeah. I don't know. It surely is interesting. And I would be curious to maybe reach out for a comment or something from them. But surely most people, when they receive this kind of gigantic attention, tend to fold, right? Like we were talking before about the Coffin of Andy and Lele, where the developers basically completely vacated. And that's similar, right? Like it was the incest keyword, and people got a bit weird about it. And so the developer's like, well, I don't really want to talk to any of you, but I don't want to stop doing what I'm doing. And it kind of, I don't know if people are still upset about this game or not, but It's the same kind of thing. I think people just kind of bandy onto a trend, bandy onto a call to arms about a ridiculous thing so that they can feel justified and feel good about whatever it is that they're doing without actually ever
Yeah.
looking into whatever the problem was or like actually ever trying to solve real problems ever.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of like a couple of things. I think one, I do like legitimately think like media literacy has just gone down in the
Mm.
past like decade or so, where people cannot understand that just because something happens in a story does not mean the people who read it think that this should happen in real life.
Or that road. It's not like this guy has created this game based on real lived experience. It's not like developed from his POV, written from his journal, recounting the things that he has done to people. Right? Like it's intentionally supposed to be an escapism where people aren't actually harmed, where people can explore these themes and learn more about, you know, things in a safe way.
Yeah, and it's like again, it's like with like the like non-con fantasy, it's like from like the victim perspective of like women who fantasize this. Like they don't actually want this to happen. Like nobody actually wants this to go down. Like even from like the top's perspective, like the person doing it, like you wouldn't just go out into the streets and be like, I'm gonna do this today because I played a video game. Like
Mm.
to be actually in the mindset of like, I think this is okay to do, like it requires a much longer list of like things to happen or like mental disorders or like, you know, something that's wrong more so with you and not like the media content. It's really easy to blame it and be like, oh, you played a video game and that made you assault someone. And that's kind of where like this controversy all began is I believe I did some research on this a while ago, but like in the 90s or the early 2000s, like the whole reason why like otaku sort of became like such a reviled thing was because I think there was a case where a child was either like murdered or assaulted by an adult man, and they just found that he owned a bunch of anime. Like it had like cute girls in it and teenage
Yeah.
girls, and they were like, oh well, obviously the anime made him do this, and so people who like anime too much are like bad. And it's literally the same thing as like, oh, like school shooters were playing Grand Theft Auto, so therefore Grand Theft Auto made them want to do this. It's just like a really easy answer to a much more complicated question.
Mm.
And I think that's like what people don't want to acknowledge is that like when it comes to issues of like, you know, sexual assault, it's not this like easy, like, oh, if we just do this one thing, it'll never happen again.
Yeah, it's first of all playing a video game and then having it convince you of something that you didn't already want to do. Right? Even if let's say the game is literally hypnotic, hypnosis only works when the person is already kind of okay with doing a thing. Like you cannot make them do something that's so far beyond their existing will, right? And so, to use an example, if somebody played a THM game and then decided to lock themselves in permanent chastity and break their keys in half, is probably not a thing that's going to happen unless if they were really already seriously considering doing this thing. Because let me tell you, that shit is really uncomfortable and incredibly itchy most of the time. It's going to be very difficult to be really, really wanting to do this thing knowing that it's going to be awkward and uncomfortable. There's not even like a dominant mistress attached. This is, you know, fully self-motivated and all this kind of stuff. And that's like a male subversion of the same problem, right? Where for anyone to play a video game, even if you're like literally hypnotized, literally convinced constantly that you need to go and kill people, that it still isn't really a thing that most people are going to be going and doing. Usually the school shooter problem is a person that was already under like insane amounts of pressure. They had no support systems. They had mental health problems because people weren't helping them in the way that a community is supposed to help people that you're a part of. And then they found that this gigantic, you know, just self-destructive kind of finale was their best course of action. Like that was the thing that they felt was all that they had left. And it's kind of the same thing. It's not like, oh man, I've played this incest game and now I have been converted. I am now unreasonably attracted to all of my siblings and I just must do something about it. Right? Like I just don't see how that works.
And especially when like, you know, like I said, like most porn contains some form of taboo. I mean, like I'm much more uncomfortable with the barely legal category than any
Mm,
video game I've ever played in my life. Because with like the barely legal category, it is preying off of the fact of like these are 18-year-old women who were minors relatively recently. And like that's like a super popular category too. And it's something that's being consumed by a lot of just like everyday guys that you see doing like normal things in their life.
mm,
Because for a lot of people, that's just like it's the fantasy or they like it because they know it's societally wrong, like because of the fact that people say this stuff and they're like, oh, this is so disgusting, and anyone who plays this is awful. Like some people just get off on that. Like that increases the taboo for them. And I'm sure for a lot of people who are buying this game and like playing it, like part of the kind of like sexual allure is like, oh, I've been told I'm not allowed to play this game and that it's
mm.
super violent and scary. So now I'm going to enjoy getting off to it even more because I'm like, you know, owning the libs when I'm
Yeah.
jerking off.
Bro, where's that energy when it comes to reading banned books? It's so funny because, yeah, all the media that's supposed to be banned is part of maintaining the fascist regime. And so they'll never actually really ban any video games to accomplish anything because that's. I personally think that it's actually the opposite. Violent video games don't create school shooters, violent video games create soldiers to be recruited. And then you just like end up in military service or whatever. Which I think makes more sense because then you think, oh, this thing is cool. Me shooting people is cool, and then you get turned into doing that. Like, seems way more likely that they would use this as a recruitment pipeline rather than decry it as something horrible and get rid of it. But I don't know, sexual crimes, I guess maybe isn't a thing that they don't want to be doing. But then you've literally elected someone that could have been jailed for these things. So I don't see that being a problem either. I just have a lot of problems with understanding why people complain about this stuff and why all of these things are problems. I really do.
I almost see it as like projection or like misdirected anger, where like there is a lot of reasons to be angry about sexual injustices, you know, gender-based discrimination. Like there is a lot of understandable ways why like women would be mad about like how gaming spaces can be sometimes. Like I've been there where like I've been the only girl in like the tabletop event and it's very
Mm,
awkward and guys treat you a little weird sometimes. But like and then you find a thing like a game or a particular streamer or whatever who is representative of this thing you don't like, and then like if you're in your head you're like, if I can get this thing taken down, if I can cancel this guy, cancel this game, whatever, I'm going to feel better about myself and I'm going to feel like I did a social justice when you didn't. No progress has been made. This has not helped a single victim of actual like real life sexual assault. Like go put all of this energy into like supporting charities or, you know, volunteering at like women's shelters or learning more about consent and the law and like standing up for people, because yelling about a video game on Twitter does not help anyone. There was actually
mm,
someone in the Itch.io comments, which was really interesting, who was like, hi, I'm actually a victim of assault, and games like these are how like I cope, and it's like it helps me to like process some of my feelings and like relive the experience in a way where like I get to control it and it's not real.
mm,
And, you know, there's a lot of like people who do that as a part of therapy because that's always the response is that's not healthy, go to therapy. But like there are therapists who, for some patients, recommend like, yeah, sometimes these forms of fiction can be ways of processing it. It's super common amongst people who have experienced these kinds of consent violations. So to just be like, oh, this is a men thing, like only men are enjoying this and like men are the only like evils in this world is like so like reductive. And it also like the other thing is it completely erases all male victims of sexual assault that have ever existed, which they do exist. They are out there. And you know, women can also be the consent violators sometimes.
mm. Yeah, it is. I don't know. There's kind of there's kind of a lot there, and I think it is. You're right. A good tool for people to, even if you had no experience with it. Imagine you're walking into this and you go, "Damn, this is gonna be so sexy. I'm gonna blast ropes all week." You play the game and you're like, "Oh, actually, this is really bad. I'm experiencing empathy for the first time in my life. I see how these people are being treated terribly, and I don't want to experience that." I can see that certainly being an outcome. Like, there's been plenty of times when I've found something while scrolling and you see the thumbnail and you go, yeah, that's not for me, or that's really weird, or I don't think I could enjoy that. and that teaches you about something, like regardless of whether you've experienced it or not. And then maybe seeing some non-con stuff, you'd be like, I really don't think I could be doing that. That feels really wrong. But then there was another thing that happened maybe a couple of years ago that this reminded me of, where there was a big streamer, and I can't remember their name, who was like in the big kind of YouTube streamer culture and knew a lot of people and kept asking people for money, for help with different things or whatever. Something was happening, I need help with money, and then borrowed money from lots and lots of people. And it was because they had a really, really bad gambling addiction, and they gambled away all of the money. And then what happened was, some of the people that they had borrowed money from, it was like really large amounts. A lot of the streamers are like, have a lot of money and disposable income. They're like, it's not a big deal. It kind of sucks, but I kind of gave it to you knowing that I would never get it back or whatever. But then there was some people that were like, well, actually, I did that because I was trying to help you out, my friend. But now knowing what the problem was and didn't actually accomplish anything, you're still stuck in this problem. But also, I am now much poorer because of it. They're like really suffering. And what some content creators did that were part of it or had lost money or knew about it, got together, did like big events and like raised money and put together themselves to pay back all of the other victims that were much more at risk to this thing, and actually help people that suffered from the problem, right? This is people in this space getting together and helping deal with the issue and talk about gambling addiction and stuff like that. And I feel like this is a great opportunity for the developer to be like, well, we understand that we've come under a lot of controversy for this kind of thing. This was our intention with the game. This is what we were trying to do. Instead of what they've written on the Patreon post, which is kind of like a big apology and like, oh, fuck you, we were making a cool thing anyway. But it's been like, well, actually, we've now gotten all this extra money and attention because of it. This is what we're going to do to help victims of assault. This is what we're going to do to, and, have a positive message at the end of it where people can, if you are experiencing for this kind of thing, here are the resources that you can use to reach out. And get help from these kinds of different things. So I think that there is more to be done. I know that I am small compared to a lot of other creators, but I always look up at people that have more following or more opportunity or more exposure to me and be like, well, what could I be doing if I was in that situation? What, helpful, positive thing could this situation become? And I'm always like, well, if all of your motivations are selfish, then that kind of sucks. And I know it definitely feels like the dev is under attack right now because everyone is talking about how horrible they are. But over time, when the itch.io payments start coming in, they go, well, actually, I have millions of dollars. I'm going to go make a sequel that's shittier or something. Or actually build something that is, I don't know, going to help people or whatever.
Yeah, and I know there's been like some of those like kind of like the itch.io like fundraising where they group all of the games together and then like you can make it support a certain charity. I know at least some like I think some like dating simulator games and like some erotic games have been featured in packs that I've gotten for that before. I don't know, maybe that could be we'll throw that idea into the ether. Get together a bunch of lewd game devs and maybe support like a particular charity or something through porn.
Wouldn't that be really funny? You work at the like women's shelter or something.
Where'd you get all this money?
Wow, we just got this massive $300,000 donation. Oh, wow, that's I would love to meet the person that. Oh no, not one person. It was actually several different porn stars that got together. But yeah, I mean, sometimes that's kind of the thing, right? A lot of the people that do make like porn stars, adult creators, sex workers, adult devs, and stuff like that are obviously not rich people, right? I don't have a lot of money, and I spend all the money that we earn trying to keep the business running so I can continue to do this. And these kinds of people are always going to be much more at risk and much more closer to the average victim of these kind of problems. And we're all kind of here together. We're all, back up against the wall, so to say, with a lot of the problems that we have to face in our lives, and building meaningful support networks, which is, like I said, a problem before, for the school shooter issue and stuff like that, where you can actually help each other, you can actually talk to each other and be able to express these problems and be there for each other when you know that things are a bit rough, is kind of really important. We live in a society, truest words ever spoken, I guess. We live in a world where isolationism is the number one tactic used against the enemy to stop us from being able to solve any real problems and to just suffer forever. And the greatest way to solve that is to make friends, is to meet your neighbor, is to be a part of a community of people where you are actually able to help each other. I know that this was an episode for sure, one of the episodes of all time, but that is unfortunately our wrap on this special breaking news thing. And the news was have more empathy and look out for your friends, and also maybe video games aren't evil. I don't know. Did we accomplish anything today? That's hard to know. But it is worth talking about these things. It is worth destigmatizing a lot of this stuff. Because sure, there is going to be content that is going to be bad and will be harmful, but also not everything is this, and how we engage with those different things is really important. And putting a critical lens on the kind of content and experiences that we have, is kind of important. And sometimes authors can do better things to engage with the community or communicate their intent, or, talk about the issues and stuff that are in particular text. Obviously, with THM, we deal a lot with transgender people. Like, that is the main thing. And obviously, we are incredibly pro-trans. All of our media is about encouraging people to transition and talking about Sleeve Shock is literally about acknowledging who you really are and then how you are best going to live that life, which is, I don't know, confrontational, I guess, to a conservative kind of person. But that's the kind of wholesome things that is going to be needed going forward, is things that we need to be focusing on. So I don't know, we very, very sometimes have to do the hard news episodes because hard things happen in our lives, and it's very likely that we'll go back to your regular scheduled broadcasting of talking about dicks and boobs and playing video game and having a silly old fun time. But it is kind of worth having a serious moment from time to time and talking about the kind of important things that impact the adult industry here on the Sexy Business Podcast.